This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 934, recorded on Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. Follow the science threads. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we will fill your heads with Megalodon meals, snake support, and stupid, sexy spider mites. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. The following program makes no promises about the usefulness of the new thing. This program is not responsible for your experience of the new thing. Your choice to try the new thing is yours and yours alone. Any discussion of the new thing during the following program does not suggest promotion or support of the new thing. In fact, we really don't know why people keep going on about the new thing when there is still an old thing, except for the fact that the old thing isn't really exciting anymore and might actually be bad for people. Do we know if the new thing is bad for people? No. But we don't know that it isn't either. We really don't know anything about the new thing yet and wish people would stop going on about it already. Jeez, don't people know it's time for This Week in Science? Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to you, Dr. Kiki.
And a good science to you too, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We're back again to talk about science because that's what we do. It's in the title. It's, kind of self-explanatory, right? We've been doing it. We'll keep doing it. Mm-hmm. We're an old thing, but it's always a new thing every single week. I brought stories this week about Megalodon, minerals, minerals on Mars, and silence.
Silence, huh? That's might be interesting. As
I
long
know.
As not sparing silence.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big old dead air. Okay, Blair, what's in the animal corner?
I have rebellious birds. And I have mites, the mites that you mentioned before, and also some social snakes. I don't know. I have a lot. It was really hard to pick stories this week. There was a lot of really good science news this week. So you're getting a smattering of some animal news.
I like the smattering. And, if anything else comes up and we're within our tight 90, just bring it in. Pull it on in.
Well, I'm glad you brought the Megalodon because I didn't get to bring that. So that's perfect. That's
why we have the more than one host, and then we share. Yeah. And it's all who gets to do this story? Okay. You put it in the show notes first, then you get to do it. Yes. All right, everyone. We are going to jump into the show. Justin's out for the next few weeks, and so it's just me and Blair so far. And we'll keep holding on to that. I want to remind you that if you have not subscribed yet to This Week in Science, you can find us all places that podcasts are found. Look for This Week in Science. We are also known as TWIS, TWIS. You can find us on Twitch, on Facebook, and YouTube, streaming weekly, live at 8 p.m. Pacific time-ish. And if you want to find us on Twitch, Instagram, Universidon, and some other stuff out there, look for TWI Science. TWIS Science is the username that you can look for if you don't just find us under TWIS or This Week in Science. Okay. All other things, go to This Week in Science's website, which is twis.org. Whew, all the things. It's time for the science? It's time for the
Yes,
science.
what do you got?
All right. So I want to start off the show with Martian minerals. It's not Marvin the Martian, but organic minerals have been discovered in Jezero crater on Mars. What do you
Okay.
think when you hear organic minerals,
That just
organic
means it's
molecules?
carbon, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's the key that I was gonna. I mean,
It
I had
might
to
as well be graphite from a pencil.
exactly. Yep, there you go. So that's the
Great.
take home of this story, and
Yeah, you hear the word organic, you're like, "Oh, there's life." No, it just means carbon based. Chill.
chill, everybody. Exactly. So, so if you're hearing about this organic matter on the surface of Mars, it's exciting because it gives us an idea about possible uh, possible chemical processes that are going on related to aqueous processes. So processes that take place in water, right? So water, organic molecules, there's processes that are sometimes involved in the support of life or could have been involved in the development of life on this planet. But there's lots of chemical processes that occur
Mhm.
within the geology of rocky bodies that
Right.
involve water, and water is the universal solvent, remember? So lots of dissolving and helping things bond to each other and break apart. And anyway, it's they have findings from the instrument called Sherlock. Yes, the
Okay.
scanning habitable environments with Raman and luminescence for organics and chemicals instrument on the Perseverance rover. So, Perseverance is a rover that's been in the Jezero crater for a couple of years now. Yeah, Perseverance has been touring around Jezero crater for quite a while, taken its sweet time to go around and look at the dirt on Mars. And the exciting aspect of this dirt on Mars and these crater floor analyses is that they've had a number of fluorescence detections of various different organic minerals, lots of things that could be very interesting for understanding the chemistry of the surface of Mars. Um, what's interesting moving forward is that this may give us more information about the evolution of the planet itself and what Jezero crater was once thought to be, which was a watery inland lake.
Hmm. Well,
Hmm.
that's neat. I think I really want to be in these NASA meetings where they're coming up with acronyms because I'm very curious how that works. Like you spend months, years, decades on something, and at some point you say, "Okay, time for us to have the meeting to name this thing."
Yeah.
And how long does that take? Does that take an hour? Does that take months? Does that take
Oh, I bet it's a
how many
really long
beers does it
process.
take?
Oh, I bet these teams, these collaborations that come together because they have to put together the idea for the instruments to be
Yes.
included in the mission in the first place. And then at NASA
Right.
votes on which instruments are going to be included. So these collaborations of researchers come together. Oh, look at Patrick Pecoraro says they do it reverse.
Yes,
So
obviously. So
after the
they
fact,
came up with the name first. Well, I
no, they
assumed
come
he
up with
meant
the instrument first. What are we going to do? Right?
right, but then
Yeah,
they say Sherlock, then they go, "What can we spell with Sherlock? What acronym?"
exactly.
Yes. It's definitely a stretch every time, which it's fine. I enjoy it. It's very enjoyable to kind of see what they've come up with linguistically, but I just think it's hilarious to think about all of these engineers working so hard on this crazy scientific venture, and then somehow, somewhere on their Outlook calendar is a meeting for
The
acronym
naming
brainstorm.
acronym. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. We're gonna brainstorm. We're gonna get this acronym, everybody. It's gonna have to be, a really good one. Make sure that everybody is excited by it. Patrick Pecoraro, who works with NASA and is our chat room right now, is moving forward in the chat and saying they did theirs forward, making the acronym and the
Actually
thing and
mean something? Yeah.
mean something, and was booed because it wasn't any good.
Oh,
And
man.
then says most of the time it's off the cuff. This is the insight you wanted, right,
Okay.
Blair? This is what you
Yeah,
wanted to
that is
know.
helpful. I just done in the hallways or on Teams. Yes, absolutely. Or over a beer, I would imagine is helpful.
Oh my gosh. I wonder how many acronyms are written on napkins in the
yes,
bar or the cafe.
they
Mhm.
must be. Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, back to the actual science involved.
Back to the
It's
actual
not a watery
story.
crater.
Anymore. It used to
Yeah,
be. So Deseret used to be submerged. They had as a shoreline, and what we're seeing in a lot of the data that's coming from the various instruments that have been analyzing deposits and rocks that are being picked up by the rover. They're determining all sorts of stuff that it falls right in line with what we understand for watery shoreline environments and the aquatic chemistry that happens there.
Right.
Yeah,
Cool.
at various depths. So this is right in line with that, but it doesn't mean there's life on Mars.
No.
It's just cool chemicals that are being discovered by a robot on a planet in our solar system that is not Earth. So that's always a very exciting thing. But anyway, yeah, cool stuff. Perseverance and all of its instruments are still going on Mars. There's so much to learn about that surface. What do you want to talk about, Blair?
Well, speaking of modern invention, researchers from Naturalis Biodiversity Center and Natural History Museum of Rotterdam, which I had to look up and was in the Netherlands, they found some very interesting innovation in bird nests. Specifically, carrion crow and a Eurasian magpie have both built their nests out of anti-bird spikes.
I love this story. Spiky birds using our anti-bird spikes to their own benefit.
I mean,
okay.
I definitely, living near big cities, I bet a lot of people have seen a pigeon who found a way to perch on the anti-perching material. It happens. Birds are resilient. They're going to figure it out. But what's really interesting about this is that magpies, they actually make roofs on their nests to prevent other birds from stealing eggs, to keep other birds away. So they usually use thorny plants for this. So when all of these developed cities put anti-bird spikes out, they went, perfect. And so there's a huge nest that was discovered in Antwerp in the courtyard of a hospital. A patient actually saw it and called it out. High up in the tree, magpies made a huge nest of about 1,500 metal spikes. They peeled about 50 meters or 150 feet of anti-bird pins from the eaves of the hospital, and they did that to keep other birds away from their babies. So they found a way to do that. They also have found other magpies using things like barbed wire and knitting needles for similar use. Yeah. And then they also found a bunch of crows that also did this. So this isn't a one-off. This really is just birds going, oh, I'll take that.
I want to know
and using it for their own advantage.
Have the researchers or other individuals watched these magpies get these anti-bird spikes off of the eaves of roofs? Because I'm imagining the time it would take, with the beak, prying centimeter by centimeter to get these things off.
Yes. So to answer your question, not for all of these observed cases, but yes, some of them, they have watched them pull this stuff off and bring it over to their nest. So yeah, it's, I mean, there's no better deterrent of birds that are going to eat your babies than an anti-bird deterrent. So magpies, you figured it out.
Doing great. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there are all sorts of things that people put into the world that birds use. I love shrikes
Yes.
using barbed wire. And I
Mhm.
mean, they also use cacti spikes
Mhm.
to spear their prey on. But barbed wire is one of them. Anything pokey, they're going to use it. But this is a different level because they're actually these spikes are attached to eaves. They're not like they're supposed to last
Yeah.
through weather. They're
Yeah,
not
there's
supposed to
just
come off
they're
easily.
they're like hammer and nail attached to these eaves. Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
this is an extension of a previous study looking at artificial materials and animal structures in general, looking at things like face masks, plastic plants, condoms, fireworks, cocaine wraps, sunglasses, windshield wipers, all of these things. So
Well,
this is not a surprising next step. It's just
mhm.
it's not
It-
ironic. What is it?
it's brilliant.
It's rebellious, I guess. That's what the headline says, and I think that's accurate. It's
It's
rebellious.
rebellious but beautiful. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing that the birds were able. This is very consistent. It's not a mishmash of
Hmm.
many different kinds of materials. It's not, oh, I'll go get a windshield wiper and some of these things and put it all together. They've specifically gone for the large number. It spikes all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is
I can't
brilliant.
imagine how comfy that is for the babies when they hatch, but better than being eaten, I guess.
Don't want to be eaten? Use spikes for your baby's nest. It's
Yeah.
amazing. That is really amazing. I'd love to know with the study of these birds, next, okay, they do this. So the question is, do they preferentially choose the spikes over other options? So if the birds are given
Right.
multiple options, will they go and have they determined that this is the best thing?
That's a great next
Yeah.
step. Yes, I think that would be very interesting because then you'd kind of confirm like this is the best version of this thing, and I'm going to use it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it.
I want the best version of my bird's nest. It's going to be spiky.
Yes.
It's a full on Kiki nest. Okay. So those birds' nests, they're made to sit in a tree and they're made to last and not fall out of a tree, and tree limbs are moving all over the place when the wind blows, and so there's probably a certain amount of deformation that's built into the structure of bird nests. And you think humans would have similar ideas about their buildings, but it's really more recently than historically that we've started to take deformation of the surface on which we put our buildings really into account. And so while we've been considering things like, I don't know, earthquakes, we haven't really considered the hazard that's lurking underneath the cities that's
Sandworms.
called
No?
no,
Tremors?
no,
No?
no,
Okay.
no, well, no, no. Underground climate change.
Oh, that's different.
It is. Yeah, not
Uh-huh.
tremors. These tremors could be caused by underground climate change, but published in Communications Engineering, researchers at Northwestern have been investigating the city of Chicago, the Windy City, and the temperature of underground structures, as well as the deformation of the soils around the city and the deformation of the earth with the changing temperatures. And in this study, what they are reporting is that these underground structures, so transportation systems, parking garages, basements, all these things, they can capture heat that's emitted by the city because they're concrete and usually part of above ground structures. Even though you go into them and they feel relatively cool being underground, they're still warmer than the surrounding ground. And so they add to the heat island effect of the cities. And in adding to the heat island effect, they also influence increased temperatures in the ground. And those increased temperatures in the ground lead to further shrinkage of the soils, of the dirt of those surfaces, and deformation that comes along with it. And over the course of a year, there can be significant amounts of surface deformation in the ground on which cities are built. Enough deformation that older cities with older buildings may not, with the stresses of climate change as they're coming and the increased temperatures as carbon dioxide increases in the atmosphere and in the oceans, this is going to lead to more and more deformation and possibly problems with our buildings if they haven't been built to take that into account.
Right. Which they haven't, I'm sure.
Which, right. Well, that's the key. Older buildings really have not had that have not been built to take that into account, but newer buildings and newer areas do to a certain extent. Some of the recommendations from the study are that cities should take the underground climate change into account, not just for how it is going to impact soils, but maybe for future harnessing of that heat, and that the heat in the soil could be used for heating in the winter, for geothermal purposes, or what other sustainable ways could that heat be applied to creating energy or being used for various purposes that could be good instead of just bad and heating things up.
So I guess my other question is, what can you do anything to slow down the deformation when you have buildings that aren't adapted for it already?
More green spaces. The concrete itself is part of the heating, and so the parking garages, parking areas, buildings that are
concrete.
Yeah, concrete. Comparisons between areas that were under underground parking garages that were under parks versus under concrete or streets or buildings. The ones under parks, the ground did not get as hot and did not experience as much deformation.
Interesting.
But yeah, and I think this is interesting just in addition to the subsidence from groundwater use, which is the other aspect of this. As we use more and more groundwater and we don't have fresh water replacing it as much through the normal processes because we're using so much, that's causing deformation. And then it's also not going to be as wet an environment, so not as cool, and on and on and on. You can see how the feedback loops might work.
Yeah. That's always that's the pro con of a climate solution to a new problem that is something that we're trying to get people to do anyway. It's like, will this make it more likely that people will add more green spaces? Or is that already a lost cause and we have to figure something else out?
Right.
But hey, if you got a flat surface, put some grass and trees on it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It
Green
looks
roofs.
good. It
Yes.
reduces heat islands in general. It's more oxygen is a good thing. It's just put it everywhere. Every flat surface should either have a solar panel or greenery on it. One of those two things.
Yep, I agree. Rhoda Loria, the researcher who in this study, says, based on our computer simulations, we've shown that ground deformations can be so severe that they will lead to problems for the performance of civil infrastructure. It's not like a building will suddenly collapse. Things are sinking very slowly. The consequences for serviceability of structures and infrastructures can be very bad, but it takes a long time to see them. It's very likely that underground climate change has already caused cracks and excessive foundation settlements that we didn't associate with this phenomenon because we weren't aware of it. So just beyond normal amounts of deformation and subsidence. Yeah. The silent impact of underground climate change.
Oh, no.
You didn't even know about
it.
Let's see. Blair, you want to talk about, did you have another study you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I do. Yes. Hey, I'm here to tell you for the millionth time that same-sex sexual behavior is normal in nature. That's pretty much this whole study.
Yes.
But I'll get into it. This was an observation of wild rhesus macaques. It was over 3 years. And they looked at behavior They also looked at genetic makeup of these individuals because they had 236 males within a colony of 1,700 rhesus macaques. They lived in the wild freely on the tropical island of Cayo Santiago, Puerto Rico. And they were able to do genetic analysis as well because they have pedigree records going all the way back to 1956. So all of that to say, just by observing these monkeys in the wild, they could figure out a lot going on with monkeys' behavior, but also who's related to whom. So is certain behavior genetically linked or not? Well, they found, you'll never guess, most males were behaviorally bisexual. Variation in same-sex activity also, by the way, heritable. So there's that. So because it's heritable, that means there should be an evolutionary underpinning. There should be an advantage to same-sex behavior. Otherwise, it wouldn't be conserved unless it was linked to something else, right? So they found that in these 236 males, 72% of them engaged in same-sex mounting.
Wow.
Only 46% of them engaged in different sex mounting. So quite common. The same-sex behavior in males was also correlated with coalitionary bonds. Sorry.
Mhm.
Coalitionary bonds, which means that those that engaged in the same-sex behavior were more likely to back each other up in conflicts. It created camaraderie, and that provided an advantage in the group. They also found that males that engage in same-sex behavior were more successful in reproducing. So it actually refuted the idea that same-sex behavior is deleterious evolutionarily.
I think
because
that's great. Yeah.
They were actually reproducing.
And they
That might be
reproduced
because
more successfully.
Yes. And
Mhm.
that might also be because they had these coalitionary bonds. So they had kind of backup when they were competing for females. They found overall that the same-sex behavior was 6.4% heritable, which doesn't sound like a lot, except that is a similar percentage to other heritable behaviors in primates, like grooming and sociality. So it actually is a significant number. And so this is the first evidence that they found of a genetic link to primate same-sex behavior outside of humans. So, of course, there's a bunch of things that you could talk about from here. You could draw correlations to human behavior and all these sorts of things. But basically, the bottom line is same-sex behavior is prevalent throughout the animal kingdom. Throughout. And it can't be deleterious because it wouldn't exist. In fact, it's probably advantageous because it continues in all types of life. So it's something that the more we look at it, the more this is backed up over and over and over. It is a natural occurrence. In fact, it's seeming like most animals that we look at are bisexual, which seems pretty normal. It's just, sex is part of social behavior. It doesn't need to. It's just another interaction between two individuals. So if that is a way that they take care of some of their social bonding and they have social benefits from it, then there you go. So anyway, just another study, throw it on the pile. Same-sex behavior is normal. Everybody chill out. Thank you. Good night.
I think this is, just another example of, there's a judgment and fear of things that we don't really understand or, that are not able to be controlled, in a particular way. People like to make things a very certain way. Like, okay, this is how it's going to all fit into the box. And then we're just creating the box and we didn't pay attention to what was happening before we made the box, and we don't know what else is going on, and now we're learning more about it. And so
what's one of the most common things you hear from people who take issue with same-sex behavior in humans? They say it's not natural. Well, actually, it's very natural.
Very.
Very. So it's just look at our primate brethren. They're doing it and they're benefiting from it. So
And I think they're, that they go on, the big points there also are this is going on. A lot of those individuals, and who cares, but they're going on and being reproductively
yes,
successful.
yes,
um, but then additionally, there are other studies that suggest this kind of behavior is great for social bonds and
hmm
for
hmm
when you have these groups of social animals, it just makes the whole group more socially cohesive and less prone
hmm
to violence and aggression. Everybody gets along a little bit better. You've got lots of also suggestions that there are uh, behavioral explanations that relate to kind of similar to the grandmother hypothesis or the sibling hypothesis, but that
right,
these are other
yeah,
individuals that are aunts and uncles and relatives and share in
hmm
the success of the group in total, and they're
absolutely,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, different strokes. It's it's all natural.
It's all natural, man.
Yeah. Speaking of natural, some things are naturally dead now. Let's talk about Megalodon. Um,
Very
Ototus,
dead. Yeah.
very long time dead, millions of years dead. Ototus Megalodon, you know, the shark ancestor that brought us such blockbuster hits as the Meg. And I think the Meg 2? I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think there's a
I
Meg
think
too.
there's a
Would you let me just clarify? As Kiki said, they're dead.
they're dead
The megalodon
ancestor.
is not currently swimming in our oceans. It's
No.
dead.
His big old shark ancestor, been dead for a long time. It was really, really big. And that's why we think it's cool. And Shark Week is coming up here. And so somebody's probably going to go on and on some reality
Shoosh.
television about Megalodon. But just, nope, they're dead. Anyway, publishing in the International Journal Historical Biology, researchers have recently analyzed little tiny scales that were found in the vicinity of jawbone, teeth, and vertebrae. And the exciting part about this is that they've really never analyzed this kind of a tiny structure related to megalodon before. In fact, a lot of megalodon's natural history has been assumed the um, based on the structure of the jaws and the vertebrae. So ideas like megalodon being endothermic, or what is wait, the endothermic, yes, heat inside of itself, that which is warm
Warm blooded.
blooded,
Yeah.
which is part of the idea is that megalodon was very, very large and was warm blooded because it was always out there chasing its prey. And it was looking at those big vertebrae and it was eating all the time. And it had to be warm blooded, hot blooded to go after its prey all the time. And so, yeah, so this big 20 meter or so large dead shark ancestor. They used to think that that's what's going on, but based on this new study of what are called placoid scales, which are these little tiny
They're
scales. They're
they're like
tiny
tooth scales.
scales.
They're yeah.
Yeah,
It's
little
what
tooth
makes them like
scales.
sandpapery. Yeah.
And looking at it, what they determined is that sharks and other predators that do lots of fast swimming and are constantly fast swimming have tooth scales, have placoid scales that are more structured for fast swimming. And so it's basically like race cars that have a smoothness about them that'll allow for better water flow so that they don't use as much energy. It's like, the really cool swimsuits that they're giving to Olympic swimmers and stuff now.
And
But
maybe have since been made illegal at the Olympics, I think. I don't
possibly,
remember.
yeah. But the final determination from looking at these placoid scales is that uh, Megalodon was an average swimmer. That Megalodon kind of tootled around, wasn't really fast, and maybe went really fast every once in a while during a chase after prey. But that hot body temperature is most likely for digesting the big prey. So, kind of like anacondas and other big snakes that don't move around quickly very much, but they have these big prey and they rest and digest for a very long time. That Megalodon might have been just like that, and that the digestion, or what they call visceral food processing, was the more important part.
Mm-hmm. See, this is where I get frustrated with the endotherm conversation with dinosaurs, and then also with the Megalodon, is that maybe I'm just being a fuddy-duddy, but...
You're a fuddy-duddy, Blair. Blair, younger than me. Fuddy-duddy at 11.
In my opinion, an endotherm is somebody who, their metabolism works crazy faster as compared to ectotherms because they are self-sustaining this warmer body temperature. But some of these dinosaurs and also the Megalodon that they claim are endothermic are basically just like, they're so big that their heat conservation is better, and so their temperature range is not as big as an ectotherm. And so this is where I get frustrated, because I feel like endotherm versus ectothermic is like a basic descriptor of how their metabolism works, as opposed to
much more nuanced.
Right, as opposed to whether they cool down a lot or not. And so I always want more of that information, which we can't get from fossils, is the problem. Basically, from fossils, you just know, oh, well, they didn't get that cold, basically, is what we know. So they're endothermic. Well, but how? What was the mechanism by which they are staying warm? Is there something internally happening that is regulating their temperature? They are burning more energy to do it, or are they just warm because they're big?
Yeah, so Megalodon apparently was warm because it was big. And maybe it helped with digestion, and that was a part of that, and that's why it was so big. Big prey, big digesting, but yeah. It's not okay.
Just a warm shark. That's not an endothermic animal. I just feel like you're taking away the point of those terms. The point of those terms is that they metabolize food differently. They have different energy requirements, and their entire metabolic process is different. It takes more water. They have to find more food, all this stuff. And so I'm not surprised to hear that this guy wasn't fast, because he just had good temperature conservation, because he was huge. His surface area to mass ratio was such that he didn't cool down.
Yeah. But I love the idea, it's kind of like T-Rex was this terrible predator, and now we're like, T-Rex was like a scavenger, maybe ran around a little bit, but was more stompy than runny, right?
He was like a vulture. He was like a turkey vulture.
With a big head, but now this is something else that's coming out. We got Megalodon. Fearsome shark predator, blah, and fast, and kind of average, just big. I mean, you don't want him to bite you, but
is it Jason Statham or Vin Diesel? I can never. It's Jason Statham, right?
Jason Statham.
He's just like
I love it. It's a great movie. Great movie.
Sorry, don't come at me, internet. But I just feel like now he's chugging along in his boat. He's thunk. Oh, I ran into the Meg. That's it.
The Meg doesn't do anything.
No, he don't care.
No, Meg don't care.
Like, I'm full. Thanks, bud.
Maybe I'll go down. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, if you're tootling around in your boat and you just bumped into TWIS, Thanks for bumping in and staying for a while. We're going to hang out here, talk about a bit more science, and we hope that you enjoy this show some more. We've got some more stories coming in the half of the show right now. And right before we just get back to the show, I want to remind you that if you love the show, make sure to hit the like buttons, share, tell your friends about it. We are not a secret to be kept. I mean, if you saw the Meg, you would tell people. So you see TWIS and you tell people, okay? That's just how it works. And then if you are loving TWIS and you really want to help us keep doing what we're doing, please head over to twis.org, click on our Patreon link, and support us in a financial manner, monthly basis, $10 and more a month. And we will thank you by name at the end of the show. There's some fun stickers and other things that come in the mail. And, we just really can't do it without you. Thank you so much for your support. All right, time to come back to the show for real right now with that wonderful, wonderful part of the show that we always love, Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
I have a story about spider mites. And before you get upset...
Stupid, sexy spider mites.
I want to tell you kind of the headline of the story, but then I need to explain it. Because just the headline sounds upsetting. Male spider mites...
laughing. I'm sitting here laughing right now, Blair.
Male spider mites guard and then actively strip off the skin of premature female spider mites that are soon to molt to make them accessible for mating sooner. This is a study out of University of Vienna, Austria. And let me just put some clarifications on that sentence real quick. So first of all, spider mites don't have skin. They have an exoskeleton.
There we go.
So let's chill on that for a second. They're not ripping the skin off of a female spider mite. Okay. So they have an exoskeleton. They go through molts. That is a normal part of their behavior. And when they are in between stages from when they are not sexually mature to when they are sexually mature, they have to molt their exoskeleton so that they have the reproductive opening accessible. So already this should sound a little less scary because they're already going to molt the skin. Okay, they just do it a little prematurely so that they can get access to the females. But it really comes down to maximizing reproductive success because this all happens very quickly, actually. So this kind of mating competition is very intense for spider mites. The first copulation partner of a female is the one that sires all of the offspring. And by all of the offspring, I actually mean about half of the offspring, because males only sire daughters, sons arise from unfertilized eggs. So their chromosomal structure is very different from ours. So because they have this one and done kind of scenario, the males will guard premature females for hours before the females molt. So also hours. They're not ripping the molt off days or weeks early. It's a matter of hours. So then for about 1 or 2 hours before molting, the females have this silvery appearance because there's air that fills the gap in between the old exoskeleton and the new one. And so also it's pretty much ready. It's not painful for the female as far as we can guess because it's got this gas exchange in between. And
it's not totally, the exoskeleton isn't still part of her skin, right? That's
right. She has a secondary exoskeleton underneath that's pretty much ready to go. Sometimes the males will drum with their forelegs on the females. That might stimulate the females to initiate the molting process. It might help crack.
Hey, you.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It almost feels like you're sorry, is this way too gross? Hopefully no one's eating. But like, it almost feels like if you like pull the peeling skin off of your significant other after a sunburn, it's almost like that. It's
Ew.
not
Oh
that I've
my
ever done that.
gosh.
Anyway.
No, how about instead of that disgusting image, how about the glue that you used to put on
Oh,
your
sure.
hand in
Yeah.
elementary school and then peel it off,
Uh-huh.
right, after
Or,
it dried,
we
right?
could
And
always bring it back
sometimes
to pimple
it
popping too, I suppose. But anyway,
Blair.
it's anyway, once this the exoskeleton that's ready to go in the trash starts to crack, the male will become really active and he'll pull on the hind part of the old skin with his pedipalps until it's removed from the female. They actually start from the genital opening side on the underside of the tip of her abdomen. And pretty much as soon as that is exposed, he's raring to go. He needs to fertilize those eggs. Females that are undressed by a male first get that hind part taken off first. But females that are allowed to molt on their own will pull from the front. So this is something that is different. It's not automatically going to come off from the front, but it's more kind of just like they got to get down to business as quick as possible because somebody else could sneak in there. And so I brought this story for a couple reasons. One was that I thought it was very sensationalized the way it was described. It sounded like this horror story, but it really is. It's not that. But I also think it is a very cool reproductive strategy that I think needs more study. And so actually these researchers want to look at a few things in the future. One, they want to look at this, what they're calling undressing behavior in more detail to figure out whether fighting males are different from sneaker males. So these also have different profiles of males. So do they all kind of have similar strategies for undressing females, or can sneakers get in there after the male does all the hard work? Is this complicated? But also, what happens when a male is in the process of undressing a female and there is suddenly a rival? Does he stop undressing the female to fight off the male? Do they both try to undress the female at the same time? Does she get frustrated and leave? Like, what happens? So it seems like, in a vacuum, it's very easy to see what he's up to and why he's up to that. But
right,
what happens when you have kind of a whole
ecosystem?
Yeah,
there's you have more going on.
You have competition going on too.
Yeah, I think that's the competition aspect, and then also the female aspect. Why is the female hanging out there in the first place? Is she like, hey, thanks, I wanted to get rid of that and you're helping?
Ooh, that was itchy. Thank you for taking that off.
Itchy. I couldn't get that by myself. Thanks a lot. Yeah, what's happening there?
Yeah, that's another really good question too, is that's something else they wanted to look at was, is there any correlation between the fitness of a male and their ability to get this behavior done? So is it beneficial to the female to have a kind of, I don't know what you could say, like pushy or aggressive or eager individual do this behavior? Is there a benefit to the female and to her offspring?
Well, the female's not doing anything to get rid of the exoskeleton. Right. The male's doing all the work. So is the female metabolically benefiting?
Great question.
Because
yes.
She's saving energy that would be otherwise used. And that energy could possibly go to more successful eggs. Or, are there other aspects of it?
Yeah. And is the male's ability to get this done associated with other genetic benefits?
Right. Where does it come from? How does this, are there, like you said, are there some who do this all the time? Are there other males who never do? Are there females who put up with this? Are females who are like, go away? Like, are these family genetic lineages? Most likely, but why? Yeah. What are the benefits?
Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, now you're going to go from stupid, sexy spider mites to
rattlesnake buddies.
Ooh, danger noodles.
Yes. Cute danger noodles that need a friend.
No. No.
They need another snake as a friend, not me. Don't worry. So
Okay.
social buffering. I believe we've talked about this even pretty recently with rats on the show. But that's when a creature's stress level decreases because of the presence of a companion. Is it moral support? Is there reassurance going on? Is it a chemical exchange? Great question. That's still being studied very widely in mammals and in birds. But it's not well studied in reptiles. And so this study that was released this week is the first evidence of social buffering in reptiles, and specifically rattlesnakes. So they found that when two snakes were together and experienced a stressful situation, they could buffer each other's stress response, much like what happens to us when we endure a stressful event together, or the rats in particular, right? And so they did that by measuring heart rate. So what they did is they had 25 wild-caught southern Pacific rattlesnakes in 3 scenarios. One where the snakes were alone, one in the presence of a rope that serves as an inanimate control object. So that was their, like, do you just need another noodle-shaped thing, or is it actually a snake? And one where the snakes were in the presence of a same-sex companion. Then they outfitted the snakes with electrodes near their hearts and attached the sensors to a heart rate monitor. They then placed the snakes in a bucket. So the bucket actually is not the stressful experience. That's the calming one. That is a dark, enclosed environment, so they get to chill in there. After an adjustment period of 20 minutes, probably having a nice snooze, the snakes were artificially disturbed.
Rattle the bucket?
Yeah.
Shake the bucket.
They then measured the snake's heart rate increase from baseline, the time it took for their heart rate to return to normal, and the time they spent rattling. Because rattling is what rattlesnakes do when they're scared. They're saying, "Get away from me, please. I'm dangerous."
I'm a danger noodle. I will bite you, but I don't want
to. You're too big to eat, but I will. So the presence of a snake companion reduced the change in heart rate of snakes significantly. This was universal across the sex of the snake, whether they were males or females, from populations that overwinter individually or communally. So whether they were a particularly social population or a solitary one, there was no difference in either of those cases. It just was that if there was another snake there, they calmed down faster. So what this tells us, to probably very few people's surprise, is that reptiles have social buffering too. So
and a rope isn't gonna cut it.
A rope is not gonna cut it. And just because an animal appears to be fairly solitary does not mean that they cannot take a calming presence of another individual. And I think also this is a good reminder for how we do laboratory experiments on animals in general. Again, do you have stressed out animals that you could make otherwise calm quicker with companions? And if you are not doing that, are you giving them elevated stress levels for longer than normal that could mess up your science experiment?
And not that many researchers are using rattlesnakes for their experiments, but as a more general sense, I agree with that.
Right. But, so this was definitely preliminary because, as I mentioned, this was the first time that social buffering was looked at in reptiles. But now is the time to look at who else does it. Chances are everybody. And then you can start to kind of extrapolate from there.
Yeah, so I'm going to get the question, though, is social animals, yes, that social buffering probably makes a huge difference. But my question is, how often are rattlesnakes found in their group settings? How often do they hibernate, or do they stay below ground as individuals? I don't know enough about rattlesnake ecology. Just know that growing up, the diamondback, the western rattlesnake in California, made me fearful
Mhm.
of the foothills and the
Yeah,
train tracks
as it
near my
should.
house. Yeah.
Yes. Don't mess with them. So yes, there's populations that hang out together. There's populations that are solitary. Also, by the
Mhm.
way, snakes can eat other snakes. So I think
Yeah,
it's
they
very
don't.
interesting that none of these individuals ate each other as a result of stress. So I think that's very intriguing. Um, but yes, I think that this is proof that rattlesnakes are just like us. No, that's not right. Um, no, rattlesnakes have kind of this social element, even if they are not a gregarious species, and so that we need to take that kind of lens to animals that we don't consider social
Right.
more often to see what they're up to and how they are impacted by each other. There's also the question back to what we were talking about before: how are they calming each other down?
Yeah. Just
Is it
contact?
chemical? Is it
Yeah.
contact? Is it something else? It could be any number of. It could be the heart rates are a feedback loop to each other, since snakes feel so much vibration, right?
Yeah.
Is there
They're
some
so
sort of
sensitive.
tactile response, or are they communicating in a way that we don't know because we don't know
N
everything there is to know about how snakes communicate
no
with.
nobody knows, but rattlesnakes actually purr
They could.
like kittens,
They
in
could
a
create a sound that we can't hear, and we have no idea.
we have no clue. We haven't studied it, right? Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot to be looked at here, but in the meantime, just know that rattlesnakes benefit from a buddy.
Yeah, and I'll take back my comment on, I mean, not completely, but most animals need other individuals for reproduction, and there's got to be some aspect of
Yeah.
sociality at some point in their lives. So I guess the question is, when they're stressed, especially in human environments, what's their optimal situation? What calms them
Right.
down? Yeah,
Well, and I
good
take your
question.
point, Kiki. I mean, in a lot of animals that are solitary, the presence of another individual could actually be a stressor.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
if that's the case, especially if they're looking at same sex individuals, then that could mean it's a competing male, for example,
hmm,
or it could be a competing female for resources or any number of things. Then why would their presence be calming? And would
yeah,
it always be calming? Or does it depend
right,
on the situation? So
right,
no, I think that's a really important distinction to make is what makes this different. And if you're
right.
super stressed, does none of it matter? And you're just like, oh my God, hold me. I'm scared.
I'm just so stressed out, and I know you're stressed out too. None of us should be in this situation. Yeah,
Well, and then my question becomes like, does it have to be the same species? Or can you be stressed
different
with another
snakes.
species, different snakes, or like a mouse and a
Mm,
rat,
or a hamster,
or
right?
a duck and a finch? I don't know. It's what's how what are the parameters on this? Where does social buffering exist? There's a lot of studies to be done. So
Many.
hear that, graduate students, get on it. Social buffering experience,
All
go.
the animals, try various combinations,
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
know, hey, what do? I stress out animals and then try to
yeah.
calm them down. It's great
Mm-hmm.
research.
Yep.
I'm an animal stress factor. That's what
Yeah.
I do. All right, this is This Week in Science, and I have a few more stories to go before the end of the show. I'm going to talk about some brain stuff.
Brain stuff.
Did you hear that?
I mean, I heard myself say brain stuff.
I know, but did you hear before you said that and the kind
Uh
of
huh.
around you saying brain stuff? Now,
Like
you hear
there.
it?
Oh, this is that silence you were talking about
Yeah,
before.
did you hear the silence?
Oh my God. Yeah,
This
Kiki,
is
I heard the silence. What's up?
what's up. Okay. So, researchers are very interested in how the brain processes sound and how that leads to our perception of sound. So, the idea being that if you're in an environment listening to things, right? Our ears and the nerves attached to the hair cells in our ears are being activated when sound waves are passing by them. But when sound waves are not passing by them, the nerves aren't being activated, right? And it's that differential between active and inactive and various frequency of waves and all that allow us to perceive sound and know when there is sound versus not. But these researchers at Johns Hopkins University were interested, and this is, I guess, a puzzlement to philosophers going back years and years, centuries even, is whether or not the brain perceives silence. Is it the absence of sound, or is the brain perceiving the silence?
Oh man, are we gonna have another philosophical conversation about zero now? Is that what this is?
This is where we're going. What is no sound?
Okay.
So this published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The researchers based their research on auditory illusions. And there is an auditory illusion that was one of their specific the instances that they were testing, and it is this idea of wait, what was it? I lost the name of the auditory illusion. Aha. One is more illusion. That's what it is. So what it's called is the one is more illusion. And in past studies of this auditory illusion, they use one long auditory recording versus two shorter auditory recordings to see if people can perceive which one is longer. The reality is they're both the same length, but when there's no break in the middle of the sounds, people think that one long sound is longer than two sounds that are broken up.
Huh.
Yeah, so the timing and the auditory perception of sound in that way is very interesting. So they wanted to see whether silence worked the same way. And so this is what they're now dubbing the one silence is more illusion. And so we're going to listen to it right now. And in this, researchers had people listen to like cafe noises, train stations, lots of sounds that gave the perception of being surrounded by a lot of sound. Right, I have to share my screen so you can hear this sound as we're moving forward. Dun, dun, dun. So can you hear the sound? You're being immersed in this noise, and you're going to hear two sequences of silence, one after the other. Discrete silences separated by a brief sound versus a single continuous silence. Sequence one. Two. Which sequence seemed longer?
The second one.
Yes. Well, they were both the same, or the second one was longer, but in the research, they found that the majority of times people, it did seem longer to me too, actually, with the break in between. But the researchers showed over and over again that when there were breaks between the audio tracks, people experienced the illusion that one long silence was longer than the two broken silences.
Is that our ears, or is that the fact that we're all anxious?
Well, as a audio podcaster, yes, the anxiety of hearing dead air.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The compulsion to fill dead space is definitely part, and silence being awkward and all this. I think that's the part that's hard for me to parse out is if you do self-reporting, that's kind of the problem, right? Is you have the social implication of silence that could mess with your results a little bit.
Well, I think if you've got noise like that and it suddenly goes to silence, you're either like, what just happened to the cafe? Did it just get blown up? Or you're like, did my iPod break? Right? You're like, oh, did I pause my Spotify? Or
did I lose my hearing out of nowhere?
Right? Silence out of nowhere. That's got to be bad.
Yeah.
That's what I would think. But the researchers said that the silences did lead to this illusion effect, and there's at least one thing that we hear that isn't a sound, and that's the silence that happens when sounds go away. The kinds of illusions and effects that look like they are unique to the auditory processing of a sound, we also get them with silences, suggesting we really do hear absences of sound too. And I think it's great they did all these experiments and they came up with this new kind of auditory illusion thing, showed that silence illusions work the same as auditory illusions. But why did they not do fMRI recording of the brain?
Right. That's exactly what I was wondering. Yeah.
Happening with the brainwaves, the perception of sound is okay. This is the psychological perception, but what is actually happening? What's going on there?
Absolutely. I'd have to see that because otherwise it's too subjective.
Mm-hmm. And who's to say that it isn't the way the brain is set up for positive feedback and inhibitory feedback, that the inhibition related to sound, or however it's set up for the perception within the neural nets that are involved in that the absence of sound isn't just another trigger for your brain to perceive potentially a different concern, for your attention to be shifted.
Yes. Absolutely.
Anyway, I like this study. I think it's fun. I think it gets, it's fun that people are still finding ways to trick the brain and work with the brain and discover potential answers to these old philosophical questions, but I want them to dig deeper.
Yeah. Is 0 a number? I don't know. It's the absence of things.
Absence.
Is it a number?
What is 0, Blair?
What is silence? Is silence a sound?
Does this information really matter? Is this useless or useful information?
I mean, that's a whole nother question. Oh my.
What would you trade for all this information, even knowing it's completely useless? What would you trade?
I know. Would it be the cost of a graduate degree?
Oh, been there, done that. Okay. And I didn't.
Mom, Dad, I'm $200,000 in debt, but I'll tell you what, I studied the sound of silence. They're like, leave, never come back.
No, come back again. You don't, no. Go find yourself a job and pay that off. All right. But considering what people are willing to trade for information, researchers just publishing in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B this last week have determined that people are willing to trade pain for useless information.
Useless?
Useless. Not useful. Useless. People like information so much that we will undergo pain to receive information, even if it's not going to help us whatsoever.
I need examples. Please tell me this study has some examples.
This study is so great. So it comes originally from some work by this researcher in the 2010s involving macaque monkeys. Right? Had macaque monkeys, and they got rewards of water to do a task.
Water.
Yeah, water. And so these researchers originally they found that the macaques were willing to give up some amount of their water reward. But that was in return for aspects of the computer task that didn't actually change the outcome. No, nothing changed no matter what.
Okay.
And so this new study came from the researcher looking at this and going, I wonder what people would do. And so these experiments involved asking people to he did some experiments earlier involving small amounts of money and physical effort. So, okay, we're going to let you do this thing and you invest a little bit of money, or you do like a squeeze a handhold thing. And it's not going to impact the outcome of a lottery in the end, but you would be given information that would tell you about the lottery outcomes and about what's happening. It's not going to change the outcome whatsoever. And then you found that people would give up amounts of money and would give up or would do more work to find out about the lottery outcome, even though it wouldn't change it whatsoever. And so then he said, how far will people go? And so that's where the pain came in. In this experiment, he burned people. It's a flash. So it's a hot, painful stimulus on their arm that was from a low amount of heat to like a burning sensation amount of heat that people could, turn the pain up to find out about the outcomes of a coin flip. And so if they knew what was going to happen in the next coin flips, people were willing to increase the heat and take more pain, even though it didn't change the outcomes of the trials. At the lowest settings, they endured the heat about 75% of the trials. And then in nearly half of the trials, participants accepted the most severe level of pain.
Wow. And what was the stakes of the coin flip? It was just
knowing how the coin flip was going to turn out. Like, there's zero stakes. It was basically, we're going to do a coin flip. You bet on what's going to happen. We're going to see what happens in this coin flip. Do you want to know how it's going to come out? Do you want to know something? Do you not want to know? I mean, I'll tell you, but you have to get burned. A lot of people, the researchers think, is that people really, really want to get rid of uncertainty, and that getting rid of uncertainty is worth pain, even though it's not going to have any personal benefit whatsoever.
I think I need the information to be more benign. I need it to be like, will you be burned to find out whether Tom Holland cuts his bread diagonally or straight across?
Well, I mean, this is going to open up some really interesting, like, this is what we could do. So we go and we find a bunch of TikToks, things that celebrities are doing, right? And then we show them to volunteers and we say, okay, do you want to know what Tom Holland's going to do to the bread?
Yeah.
If you let us burn
how much do you want to know?
We'll tell you how it's going to be we'll tell you the ending before you watch the video.
Right. Yes, this is what I need. I need things that are more ridiculous.
Right. It's not, but this is just, this is psychology. They're trying to do very basic. Yeah.
The coin flip is too close to gambling. Even if there's no actual benefit, it plays on a weird human impulse to gamble that I feel like it needs to be more silly. Like, like, do you know what the population of Sacramento is? I gotta burn you. Just random stuff that has no influence on your life whatsoever.
Yeah. No influence. But anyway, do you want to know what my next story is going to be?
Not enough to be burned.
Oh, come on.
But yes, I would like to know what your next story is.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing, though, that people can't change the outcome, but people will undergo pain. Not just loss of money, not just doing more work, but
Shmogo made a joke in the chat room, example one Twitter, actually think it's pretty accurate, because the way social media is designed is to basically
Gambling.
make you feel terrible, 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 terrible hit of dopamine. Terrible, terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, terrible hit of dopamine. And you keep it's playing on the same impulse to withstand pain to gain information.
I want to know.
It's
I
why
want to
people
know.
watch
I want
the
to know.
news. I don't
Yeah.
so it is interesting that I actually think that's kind of a relevant
Very.
analogy. I don't know. Anyway,
It is. Now that you bring it up, I think that's a very relevant analogy.
yeah.
How many other things in our lives do we withstand just for information?
Just for
Even though it
info.
won't change the outcome.
No.
Last story as we head into the very end of the show and heading here on the west coast of the United States towards bedtime. Yeah, it's time to sleep almost. I love closing the show on sleepy stories. I'm really sorry if you are listening to this or watching this in the morning. So, sorry, not sorry. But researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, have published new research in Cell Reports Medicine on how sleep impacts blood sugar regulation. So that for years and years and years, it's been known that sleep issues are related to diabetes and other blood sugar and insulin regulation issues. But the link has been very unclear. Nobody has known exactly what's going on there. We also know from lots of studies that that sleep and deep sleep brainwaves have been implicated, and these brainwaves being coordinated with the non-rapid eye movement parts of sleep, that the coordination of the brainwaves has strengthened the hippocampus, leads to memory consolidation. There's lots of great aspects of these deep sleep brainwaves. So in this study, they specifically at Walker's Center for Human Sleep Science, they specifically looked at what was happening with these deep sleep brainwaves, the non-rapid eye movement part of sleep, the brain activation of what are called spindles in the brain during that NREM sleep, and how that coordinated with the deep sleep brainwaves, and then how that coordinated with other physiological factors. So what they saw moving down from the brain and down is that individuals that had highly coordinated deep sleep brainwaves and the NREM sleep oscillations, also with the brain spindles, they had really good decrease in heart rate, so a calming of the parasympathetic nervous system, a calming effect, decrease in heart rate that was like a resetting of insulin regulation. And the next day, people had better insulin regulation if they had those really coordinated brainwaves and sleep oscillations. So sleep oscillations, really good for your brain, for not just your brain, but for your body, for managing insulin. So the question is exactly how is that going on? And it's what they think is happening is that the coordination with the deep sleep brainwaves triggers the parasympathetic, or like the vagal nervous response. And so this calming reaction along the body by the decreasing of heart rate has other vagal stimulation that is involved in the resetting for the insulin sensitivity. So somehow in there, as the vagus system is calmed down, it's like, okay, whew, hit the calm down button. Everything reset. Insulin sensitivity will be better. You're going to be good today. And it had
so how
nothing
do I
to
make
do.
sure I get my slow oscillations in?
Right. So this is really good sleep quality. It doesn't matter how long you sleep overall. So they didn't find anything related to age, weight, duration of sleep. The only thing it was the entrainment of these oscillations. And so that is going to be fully going through a complete sleep cycle. So making sure that you are not being interrupted partway through, that you're getting uninterrupted sleep. So things like sleep apnea are also going to interrupt this, because you're going to be constantly interrupting the ability of the brain to relax and of the body to relax. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that is the eternal question, right? How do you actually get to the point where you're able to have the really good quality sleep that allows you to have these deep sleep, slow wave oscillations? You have to sleep for at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You have to go
Well,
through
that's about what
one
I'm
whole
getting
cycle.
in a row these days, so that's good.
Yeah.
Getting about an hour and a half, so that'll do it. I also have my air purifier on. I have a
White noise.
humidifier pointed at my face, and I have a fan on because I'm hot. So
Wow. So you've got air circulation, you got the moisture so you can breathe, and then you've got the white noise, which should get rid of all other noises in your environment. You just need to wear a sleep mask.
No.
You could wear a sleep mask too. That
I
would
could.
no
I
light.
could.
Just make sure you're out.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't
I
do
mean,
it.
added to the list of things that sleep helps with, it's I just keep thinking about the bears, the hibernating bears that completely regrow sections of skin with no scar tissue from essentially good quality sleep. So sleep is pretty regenerative. It's pretty important. It's a bummer it's a third of our lives, but you know, we need it.
Regenerative sleep is essential. And I think this is, the mechanism specifically about how the parasympathetic reset button actually changes the insulin sensitivity and sets it up for the next day to make sure it's working well. How that happens, what the real mechanisms happening, at the molecular level, they're not there yet, but this is just more evidence related to getting good sleep.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that we're not stressing you out before bedtime about getting good sleep, because
well,
that's
it's
not going to help.
This is when I'm going to put a quick plug in for rest. As someone who's not sleeping very well, rest is also restorative. It is not as restorative as sleep, but there have been lots of studies that have shown us there are restorative benefits to rest. So even if you're in bed and you're lying awake and you're going, oh my God, I can't sleep. This is terrible. I'm killing myself. Lying in bed in the dark is
better than
restorative. So cut yourself a break, please.
Yeah, everybody, cut yourself a break. That's what we all need to do. Oh, yes. That's a great point to close this show on.
And hey, if you stop stressing out about the sleep you're not getting, you might actually be able to go to sleep. So
right. Helpful how to help your life advice from Blair and TWIS. Cut yourself a break.
Yeah.
Get some rest. We hope you sleep well. We done it. Have we done it, Blair? We made it to the end of the stories. Yes.
We did it.
I think we have come to the end. Tight 90, everyone. Let's wrap this up. It's time for me to say thank you to all of you for listening, for watching. Chat room, thank you so much for your chats and your comments and all the things that you've been saying on Discord and in all the chatty places, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I see you. Fada, thank you so much for all of your help with show notes and with social media. We're going to figure out the social media landscape at some point. I don't know.
It has to figure itself out first. I think.
Word of mouth, everybody. You need that information? Go talk to people. And Gord, Arnlor, others, thank you so much for your help in the chat rooms, making sure everything is happy and peaceful in those chat rooms. Funny as well. And Rachel, thank you for your help editing the show. Identity 4, thank you for your help recording the show. And now, I'd love to say thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Ken Northcote, Rick Loveman, George Corris, Pierre Velazar, John Rataswamy, Carl Kornfeld, Chris Wozniak, Vegard Shefstad, Hal Snyder, Jonathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Reagan, Don Mundus, P.I.G., Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fredus 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack Bryan, Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Dave, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Rick Ramus, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, E.O., Adam Mishkon, Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. Yay! Thank you all for your support on Patreon. And if you, I'm looking at you out there, if you are interested in supporting us, helping us out on Patreon, head on over to TWIS.org and click on the Patreon link. On next week's show,
we'll be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from YouTube and Facebook and from twist.org/live.
Oh, yeah. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, just search for This Week in Science, wherever podcasts are found. And if you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe too. Woohoo!
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to stories will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org, twis.org. And you can sign up for a newsletter that might exist someday. Who knows?
I love our newsletter. I think our newsletter is amazing, Blair. It's just...
It comes out once every 5 years.
Once every amount of time. Oh, dear. You can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Make sure you put TWIS in the subject line so your email doesn't get spam filtered into a bucket of rattlesnakes trying to be cozy when they're all stressed out.
Yeah, you can't reach in there and get those emails. That's not going to happen.
Nope.
You can also find us on various social media. I don't know. It's we're at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie on Twitter, but if I am being honest,
and other places,
it's broken. So anyway, we exist other places too. So just go to twist.org and find us, or email us and start there. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover or address, or a suggestion for an interview, or a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
And we will be back here again next week. And we hope that you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you learned anything at all from the show tonight, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.